Hello there, and today we're taking a look at rock panel facades like those ones here. They look like that. They have a facade like this. They're normally on buildings, and we're gonna recreate those in Grasshopper here. So just to show you like this, here we have an input curve that we can select, and then we can define the height of it. And we can control the amount of panels that we want to have on it. Then we can also control the division. We can control the randomness type. We can control the way of how random it would be. And we can also control the amount of colors that we want to have. And we can also control the randomness of the colors itself. And yeah, and as well like a defining of how those will be distributed as well. So if you want to see at how this works, then let's go and let's get into it. Very good. So right now here we have the file. It will look like this in the end, more or less, but we will just start with this from scratch, so you all know how this actually works. Okay, good. So this will also be uploaded on GitHub later, but you can just follow along so you can learn as well of how this will be manageable. So first of all, you're gonna start with I'm gonna just draw all the things of how I approach this thing. So if you have the panel, right? So you basically have those divisions here, and then you also have those lines here as well. So I'm just gonna draw this out for you, right? So we have a baseline, and then at this baseline we have other lines like those that divide the facade, right? And then on this line there will be another line on the top like this. And then we have the panels itself that kind of connect the thing together, like that. And obviously we have the colors that can get like filled in here. But let me do this a little bigger. That are in different colors, kind of like sometimes it doesn't matter exactly how this will look like at the moment, but yeah. So we're gonna create the line first, and then we're gonna put some points on there. So basically put some points here, here, and here, and we're gonna do it that those points are one time like evenly distributed and one time like more random, like we have it here. Okay, good. So let's start very simple. So first of all, we have a line like this and set one line. And we can just define it like that. Now we want to have different sizes as well, like this is one. So we're gonna create the endpoints here, right? And we're just gonna move those points upwards by move, and we're gonna use the start point and the endpoint to move it upwards. And we give it a number slider to have also some control over that as well. Maybe do it a little bigger. So yeah, like this. We copy that, and then we copy this as well, and we use the endpoint of it. So now we have the one for the one, the other one for the other one. So next we want to just connect this line together with the endpoint and the start point. So we have a second line that's right above our first line. Very good. Now we have those lines, those two lines here, and we want to connect them together with setting lines in between. Here they are just vertical things, right? If you look back at the thing here, those are just vertical connections in between those. If you take a look here as well, it is a connection in between there, and it is always vertical. So we're gonna just divide this curve that we have here, and we're gonna also divide the curve that we set it at the beginning. And we give it a count as well, and this count will be for now 11, and will be the one thing and the other as well. Now we create another line that puts together those points here. So we have them defined like that. Now, this will be now the little bit tricky part, which basically creates the part so we actually see those plates in here. So you have to take a look at this like this, okay? We have those lines, right? Now what we want to do, we want to create just a random amount of like points that are on this line. And then we also want to have a very strictly divided amount of points on this line. And so then we want to have a let's say a multiplier that switches between this state and that state, or this state and that state, or this state and that state. So we can basically check in between those two. This would be done the following. So we can evaluate the curve, right? And when we evaluate the curve like this, it takes a number between 0 and 1. And if it's 1, if it's going to be at the endpoint, and if it's 0, it's going to be at the starting point, right? And we basically have to now create a random set of numbers that are going to be between 0 and 1. So how do we do that? We just go to random, and now it wants to have a range, which would be conveniently between 0 and 1, and the amount of numbers we want to have. So we're just gonna say, okay, like those are basically the in-between panel points. So let's say, okay, I just want to have 11 here as well, like that. And this will now create, just take a look, it will create a random amount of numbers. So you're gonna put those numbers in here. And then we also need to graph the curve, because we don't want to have it on each of the things individual, but we want to have it on each curve. So we do it like graphed, like this. Okay, this looks good at the first one maybe, but not at all the other ones. So we need to create a random, we need to change the seed for each of the numbers. So we have the division here, right? So we create a series of numbers between 0 and 15, or basically like whatever, right? And it would create the random seeds for our thing here. And actually I would just wanna have it like at this at 1. And now you see it creates different sets for each of the things. And we can also change for the things, for example, a little bit, for example, you see this one, I want to have it maybe over there, so it would just move 1 to the left as well. And as far as I'm seeing it here, we are also having one thing as well. It actually creates, the amount it creates is actually 15, but we have actually 16 numbers, so we need to actually add +1 here. This can be done like this, so we just right click on the count, go on expression, and then do x + 1, so it just adds 1. And you see then the endpoint is also random like all the other ones. Good, now we have those random numbers defined, but now we also want to define the points that are more strict, right? So just let me show it to you, like why do we need to do that. So first of all, we're gonna sort the points, right, like this, and then we put them here. And now if we go on point lists, we are having the lists like that, and there are more like sorted. So there's always 0 here, the first point is there, second point is there. If we would just see it from the other points, you see they're all kind of all over the place, but we want to have them sorted. So that can actually be done here as well by just doing the sort command. It would give us the same result, might be actually more clever. Let me do this here, because in that way, this will take more computing power than this one. So we just put this one here, and it will be easier done with that. Great, so now we have our sorted points, but we also want to have the regular points that, for example, wait, so sorry, we have a polyline, right? Which, not this one, flip matrix. And if you flip basically the points, so this is not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it actually goes the other way, like this, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you connect those two together, like that, you see it already creates our outcome that we want to have, more or less. However, it's just the extreme part. So we're going to change this a little bit, and we're going to create the points that are more regular, that are more like in order, let's say. So we simply do this again by we evaluate the curve again, and we will create a range between 0 and 1. If we go over range, it will be 0 and 1 as well, conveniently. And the steps will be the amount of numbers that we have created here. So this will be like the amount of panels in the Z direction. And we are having them, and now this will actually create 21 values, but we also want to have 20 values, because otherwise this last one gets like doubled. So we just gonna do expression and do x minus 1 here as well. And in that we are able to get the numbers that we want to have here. And is this correct? Parameter, no, it actually needs to be, because we have the curve here, right? And no, this is actually correct, because this will get applied to all the curves, so that's fine. So we have those curves now defined in the more regular way again. You see like this. So one time we have this one here. By the way, you can toggle this on and off with Control and Q. So we have the random points and we have the order points. So now we want to have basically a in-between state between those. This is actually very simple to do. We're going to just create a vector between those 2 points. I just wrote it out. So we have those 2 points, right? And we create a vector between those 2 points. And then we know how long this vector is. And then if this vector will be 1, so if we multiply this vector by 1, it will be at the desired point, and if it's at 0, it will be like basically at the beginning, and if it's at 0.5, it's like somewhere in the middle, like here. And we're gonna do the same just with those 2 points here. So we have the random points, that will be like the starting point, and then the goal point would those points be that we have here in the end. So we have those, and now we just want to move the points from the random points to the points where we want to have them. And right now you see they're now all ordered. However, if I now do the following, so we have the points, right? And we can just multiply it. We can just multiply the vector, and we just we put it in here. And we just put a number slider between 0 and 1 in there. And if you put this one now in the motion, you see at 1 it's just normal still. But if we go to 0, it goes like to the random state again. So it's a random state, less random state, and this is the ordered state. And again here, if we put in the matrix here, then we have our final outcome like this. And we can switch in between those two very, very smoothly. So yeah, this is like already pretty cool. And now we also want to define some panels on those things as well. We can do that in a way which is, I think, the best one. So we can do the following. So first of all, we might also want to create a point here in the end, which actually will define the end of the curve, because right now it's just like it is a separate entity, let's say. And we can do this. We can actually do this later. This might be fine. And anyway, we want to now create a surface in between those points, right? So a way to do it is by exploding the point like this, the curve like this, and it gives us each little segment of the curve. And now we want to connect this one to that one. We can do this by doing ruled surface. However, and we want to take one and then the next one, okay? We can do this by doing shift list, but you will see this will probably not work exactly how you think, because it now will just create this surface with that surface and that surface with that surface, but we want to create it the other way around. So again, we're going to use flip matrix, and we're just gonna like control shift click this over here and this one back in there, and you see it will create the surface in between that we wanted to have here in the beginning. Okay, so this already works pretty good, and we can now continue with that here. And yeah, now we have basically our surfaces defined. So next thing we want to do is we want to actually apply some colors to it as well. So what basically happens there, we will create a grid of like points, or a grid of color schemes, let's say, between like 0 and 1. And well, let's actually have to see how we will do it exactly. But let's first create a gradient, which is gradients, and it takes parameters between 0 and 1. And we have those like 300 different surfaces. We're just gonna flatten those because we just wanna keep them all like together, because like we want to look at all of them at the same time. And now we have those 300 different parameters, right? And what we want to do now is, wait, I have to actually remember how it was done here. So here we created the list, and then yeah, okay, that makes sense. So we will create wait, let me see again. Domain between, and this domain gets defined. Yeah, so we're gonna basically, we are having, okay, and this then gets defined by that, which then gets defined by this. Okay, so we're gonna create a, whoops, not this one, not this one, but there we have it. And so we're gonna create a graph. And this graph basically takes numbers between like 0 and like 1 basically, and it outputs a different type of number. So we will just create a range, and the amount of steps it will be basically the colors that we're gonna get. So if I just put this one in here, and I get to the panel for the output, I put in the parameters of the range in here, and you see it gives us one time the color all the way to the left. Oh, actually, let me put this on the black and white one. You see it goes from all the way from white, like it makes one here, one here, one here, and one here. So, and one in the middle somewhere again. And we want to basically create those colors, like those color types, but then we also want to create different lists that correspond to that as well. So we will basically want to give those lists a certain size. Like, for example, I want to only have a few ones white and a lot of them black, you know, kind of like in that way. So we have the list length like this, and this would then be like 300, right? And we can create a domain in between those two lists. So for example, if I will multiply the list amount with the range that we have created here, it will give us like certain places in this list, right? So 0, 25, 75, 150. And we want to basically create a range in the list. So let me show you what I mean by that. There's under set list domain, where is it? No, it's this one. Sublist it's called. And it basically creates a list. It creates, depending on the range that we want to give, a size of the list. So, and this like depends on a domain. And what a domain basically does, it is a list of points in between from one point to the next point. So those are basically the points that those areas we want to have. So it's 0 to 75, 150, right? And so we do like a shift list, and this basically shifts the list one thing forward, as you see. And what we basically wanted to do is so create a list between 0 and 75 and 150, and we just put in those in here, and then it gives us the values. However, the last value is kind of false, so I will just go on set boolean here false, so it doesn't like wrap around it. It actually doesn't matter. We will just need to delete the last item of it, because the last one is just like, well, like it doesn't like 3 are to 0. We don't want that. We just want 4 of the different cases. So we have this list, and then we just gonna double slash and -1. This will delete the last item of the list, as you see here. So this would be like the last item that got deleted, and then this last item that got deleted, it now basically partitions the list into 4 different sizes here, right? Like for here we defined like the list sizes, or like the color ranges, let's say color amounts, and this will then be put into the domain thing. And now we have the list of the things here, and it will create 4 different items basically in there. However, now we want to have this list to be different, so we put this one in here, and it will create a new kind of order in this list, and we will just put this in here. So right now you will see the list would have different sizes. You see, like the branches, this one is like 169, the other one is 72, 45, and so on. Anyway, now that we have that, we basically have those 4 different lists defined, and we also have those 4 different colors defined. So we just now need to put them together. We need to go custom preview, and we just take this from here and the material from there. And this should give us, hopefully there will be no errors, but there will be, because we need to graft the material. Okay, actually I found out what the problem was to have the custom display, the custom preview, be the way weird of how it was. So let's just redemonstrate this again. So we always had this problem that it kind of looks like weird, right? Like here and those things. When we create the surfaces, I didn't wrap this surface. So basically right now it goes like this, like this, like this, but then in the end, this end surface goes all the way to the bottom. So then it creates this kind of weird, it's called Z fighting here in the end. So if you just go from the wrap and set it to false, you see it actually will give us the correct result that we want to have here. Whew. Anyway, so this was kind of a weird workaround, and well, okay, but well, we have this defined now. Hopefully I will cut this together nicely and stuff, and now we have those parameters defined here, right? The ranges, and we can obviously like change them around like this. And what we also want to have though is a jitter command, so we can kind of like play around with the colors, them being a little bit more all over the place, let's say. So let's put this one back here, and we just put this one in here for the lists, and we give it a value between 0 and 1, and so it will be just gonna be either really random or like not random at all, like this you see here. And yeah, and then you basically have the custom geometry here as the output. However, you see it actually takes like quite a lot of computing power. We can just like mesh the list that we have here, and we just put it in here. This will then create the mesh we want to have, and we can give it in here. It goes a little bit faster. It might be useful for having the right thing run a little bit more smoothly. Okay, so now that we have those defined, we actually want to create another thing in here, and that is being the because right now if you want to bake the thing, you will see it will actually bake it in just like the normal color, because the thing doesn't get assigned to it. You can change this by actually installing a plugin called Human. I just show you for right now. Like this here. You see, just you have to install it. You have to just choose a random email, log in, install it, and then when you have installed it, like when you have downloaded it, you go to special folders, components folder, and you just put in the file in here, just like put it in there, and then it's gonna be installed. You might have to restart Grasshopper in order for it to work. But when we have that, we can go to the Human tab up here, where Human is. This one at me, like it's to the right here. And there we have the opportunity to create a geometry here. Go to create attributes, and then we have to create also the material. There's another video where I go into this into this plugin a little more in depth, but I would just show you so you can have this all around thing that you can use for your places. So this is our the geometry file would be that, and then we need to create the attributes. The attributes would be just very simply be the material that we want to create here. And then this will be just the material name here we have, I think, and then it gives us the material here. And there might be some bugging things happening as well, but let's just see if you bake it. Oh yeah, no, it worked correctly. So you just have like the thing in the Grasshopper or in the Rhino environment that you can use without any problems. Okay, never mind. It's actually not, or is it correctly applied? If you go to rendered view, yeah, no, it's correctly applied. The Arctic view doesn't show colors, so yeah. Good. So yeah, I hope you liked this video. There was a bit of workaround that space is like wrap kind of thing, kind of was all twisted and stuff. But I will upload this file, which is actually almost identical as the one that we created before. However, it just has a little bit of difference here at the end, because it creates a more sensible thing. For example, here we have the we created the vector in between the points, right? But we also inserted at the beginning and at the end, we inserted just like a number, which would which should be like some kind of like what was it actually? Yeah, which was just like a number that is like takes some from the beginning and from the end, so it gets moved in there correctly, so we have the beginning and the end stitched up correctly. So you just can download this on the GitHub example that is down in the description. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one. Let me know what you wanna see, and yeah, bye bye.